Hi everyone and welcome along to the latest instalment of This Racing Life. We're moving on into the month of February, and that can only mean that the big spring festivals are not too far away. And with that in mind, here's what's coming up in this week's show.
Well, I thought the slow pace would probably be against us, to be honest, because I mean the one thing he does is stay very well. I mean, you know, he's got enough pace for 2, but undoubtedly stays 2.5 at least.
He came back from Newcastle last year, sustaining quite a bad cut which got infected, and he had to be on box rest for some time, and you know, maybe because we saved his life, which we did, was he's repaying us now.
As soon as he'd gone out, as soon as we felt he was okay the next day, I was very much looking at where do we go, how do we, you know, what we're going to do, and I was looking at all the decent graded events. So I thought we've got to make the most of him if he's back in, you know, back sound.
Point to point him is probably the biggest step, and I think it's one of the most important things probably for a young jockey who wants to turn conditional to do.
Philip Hobbs is no stranger to a legitimate Cheltenham contender, but rarely has he had one of the leading British hopes for the entire event. Defi de Soy has passed every test this season with flying colours, and whichever race he's aimed at, he heads to Prestbury Park with a favourite's chance.
He's phenomenal, and he's such a lovely horse to deal with a fantastic attitude. Every morning he comes out of his box with his ears pricked, jogging around the yard. Most horses that might jog with the others walking around the yard only do that because they're a bit stupid. He's not doing that because he's stupid, only just because he's keen to get on with it. You know, he just loves life, massively genuine, touch wood, being very sound, and he's just a lovely horse to deal with.
What's the best day with him so far?
Gosh, I suppose equally the twice he's won the Cheltenham Festival has to be really.
It was a very emotional day for you, wasn't it, when he won the Triumph Hurdle back, 3 years ago now?
Yeah, absolutely, because the plan was to be in front sort of after the last, and Dickie was going so well he was in front around the last bend. It was just a bit worrying, but it was all right in the end.
How much have you enjoyed the sort of potency, that turn of foot, the weapon that he has in his armoury this year? A lot was made of the pace of the race at Ascot last time. What was your overriding feeling at the end?
Well, I thought the slow pace would probably be against us, to be honest, because I mean the one thing he does is stay very well. I mean, you know, he's got enough pace for 2, but undoubtedly stays 2.5 at least. So I thought a slow pace was going to be against us, but he still did it very easily, so fantastic.
He's won 2 Grade 1s this season. Is that now it till the Cheltenham Festival? There will be nothing else. He wouldn't need to go to, say, a Game Spirit or Game Spirit.
Oh, no, he'd definitely go straight there. He is unusual as well, actually, in that he does need a lot of work. Does he? Yeah. Has
that been all the way through his career?
Yeah, very much so. He is quite stuffy and needs a lot of work. So this time before he ran at Cheltenham, his first run this season, he had 2 racecourse gallops before we went there, which I've never done with any horse ever before.
And it will be the Queen Mother Champion Chase?
He's in the Rhino there as well. I think it's more likely it's going to be the Champion Chase, but look, I suppose at the end of the day we've got Altior to see run, Chacon Boursois as well, see how they get on. If the ground ends up quick at Cheltenham, we know it won't be, but it could be. And if the Ryanair fell apart, why not run him in that? You know, I mean, if the other 2 won their races easily, and so we don't even want to worry about it until the week before.
He's good. He's at that stage. He's coming to the boil beautifully because, say, the last few years, the likes of Dodging Bullet, Cider Grugy, they won the Tingle Creek, the Clarence House, and then went on to win the Cheltenham Festival. They get into their rhythm. He's very much in his zone at the moment, isn't he? He's obviously enjoying his racing, and he is only a 7-year-old.
Yeah. Obviously, he's had a fair bit of racing, but when he won the Triumph Hurdle, he's not like the majority of Triumph Hurdlers that used to be ex-flat horses that have been, you know, in training since they're yearlings and running busily when they're 2 and 3. So, you know, he had 2 runs in AQPS races in France. So he's been busy, but not very busy. And actually, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how many times they've run. The most important thing of all is soundness and attitude, both of which are very good.
It's not a given that a top-class juvenile hurdler will go on and progress and flourish later in their career. It's not a given by any means. So to see him have the season that he did, to come back and win another 4 Grade 1s, both all over fences, that must have given you and the team an awful lot of pride, I imagine.
Well, it's more than not that's a given. It's more actually likely that the Triumph Hurdle winners over the years are usually disappointing.
Yeah.
But I do firmly believe that's because, as I was saying, an awful lot of them are ex-flat horses that have probably had a very busy time, and they've been hard trained when they're youngsters, and therefore a lot of them physically or mentally don't stand it.
Rooster Booster's always been your sort of flagship horse, but what he's doing at the moment, how special is this fella?
Oh, he's massively special. I mean, he's been a fantastic horse, and I think to compare different horses different times is difficult.
Yeah.
But he's been phenomenal, and I suppose the one thing you can compare is ratings. He's 170 now.
Yes.
And I think only Rooster Booster was probably the only horse we've had rated over 170. Maybe Flagship Blue Rollers was. Can't remember. I'm not sure. But that tells you where we are, doesn't it?
Defi de Soy took to the game immediately over here, having spent his formative years in France. It's taken the likes of Lord de Menil and Defi Sacre a little longer to find the winning thread, but both are coming up trumps for trainer Bloodstock agent Richard Hobson. The pair provided the Gloucestershire team with 3 quick-fire wins apiece to close 2019, as Anthony Dunkley reports.
Yeah, really happy with the form of the yard, and hopefully it will continue that way. We've changed a few things this season. Obviously we're in the new barn, which you've seen today, and the horses are fit and they're healthy, and they are running well.
You're a triple threat, if we can use this in racing terms: bloodstock agent, trainer, and also pre-trainer and braking where necessary. How do the businesses complement each other?
Well, I think they work very well. We buy a young horse, we bring them along. If they stay with us, it's fantastic. If we can find new owners to take those horses on, it's fantastic. But we have to sell, and they have to go to the sales as young horses. Unfortunately, sometimes that we might not get what we want for them on the day, but it's nice to see them go on and do well and have a good career behind them.
Do you see yourself as more one than the other, or is it very much they fit nicely in with each other?
Well, right now they fit together. I'm not saying in the future, I don't know what will happen, but we'll always hopefully have the bloodstock behind us, because essentially, unless you've got some form of big backers behind the yard, which we don't, they have to pay the bills.
So while patience has been the key with certain horses, there's also been a concerted effort to run them while they're fit and well, and Defi Sacre would fit that bill perfectly. He's done brilliantly this season.
Yeah, Defi Sacre has been fantastic. He's won twice at Newbury and once at Musselburgh, 2 Saturday afternoon races, and it was fantastic for his owner, Mr. Wills, and like you said, he's such good order during that period that it was a shame not to keep running him, and he repaid us because of that.
Talk to me about Defi Sacre's last win. It was a thrilling finish for us watching at home. Maybe for the trainer the heart rate went up a little bit.
It did a little bit. I mean, when they passed the post, obviously you couldn't straight away, didn't know who won, but when we realised his nose was in front at the time, it was a massive relief. But then obviously to go through the steward's inquiry as long as it did, you still get a little bit concerned if you're going to get to keep the race. But it all worked out for the good in the end.
What's his ideal scenario?
Defi Sacre, well, I mean, he's a 2-mile chaser. He probably would stay the 2.5 next year, but he's still young and he's still maturing. So we'll nurse him along now and look after him, and hopefully there's some nice pots either in the spring this year or next season for him.
Richard, there aren't many horses in training who have had a transformation like Lord de Menil this season. Can you put your finger on it?
Well, we'd like to think we know why, but it's always the unknown, really. I mean, he was a maiden, obviously, in 22 starts before winning at Newcastle. And I reckon the first season we had him, he just hadn't acclimatised. He was a horse which had never won in France, and he was a little bit sulky as well. He wasn't keen to go in front on the gallops. He wasn't keen to even go and jump on his own or do anything. And it wasn't until we turned him away last summer that we started to see a little bit of a transformation with him. He from being a very shy horse, he turned into this wild animal in the field with the herd and being the boss and in charge of the whole lot. And when he came back into work for the new season, he was a completely different horse altogether. He was enjoying his work and he was just a happy horse. It might have been. He came back from Newcastle last year, sustaining quite a bad cut, which got infected, and he had to be on box rest for some time. And you know, maybe because we saved his life, which we did, was is repaying us now.
He's had an incredible time over Christmas. 3 wins in the space of a month, 2 at Haydock, the last Fling, and before that the Tommy Whittle. Before that run at the first win at Newcastle though, were you confident going into it that you'd really got to the bottom of the horse?
When we ran him at Stratford in his first time out this season, and then he went to Sedgefield, he was second again, it was more the tracks which got him beat that day. But obviously when we went to the big galloping tracks like Haydock and Newcastle, which he had some form over hurdles at Newcastle anyway, you saw the best came out of him. And ground conditions is key. You know, it's by saint to saint out of a Turgeon mare, and you know, it's key that he gets really what we call nearly unraceable ground. The worse it is, the more he loves it.
Trip-wise, where do you see him?
Well, trip-wise, I mean, I've always wanted to step him up because of his pedigree, but because he shows a bit of pace in his races, obviously many jockeys have said to me, you know, this needs to come back to 2.5 miles. So that was nice to go and see him step up and win, especially over 3 miles, 4.5 furlongs round Haydock, which just shows how well he does stay.
What route are you looking to take with him for the end of the winter and into the spring?
Well, the Grand National record for 7-year-olds is pretty poor, if non-existent. He's entered in all these races, but we'd have to see what the ground does, which is key for him. And obviously, if it was a Grand National where it was red marauder conditions, you'd have to be tempted. However, if not, then we might go back to Auteuil, and there's a nice listed race there in the spring, and he'll get his ground. And obviously, if he went and won that over 3 miles, because he's never run over that trip at Auteuil, there's obviously the option of the Grand Steeplechase. But it's key that if he does go for a race like that he has to have a prep race in France. Like you just wouldn't go straight to a Grand Steeplechase. So that would be the first option if we went down that route. However, he's got an entry in the RSA, he's got an entry in what was the 4 miler, now the trip's a bit shorter now, isn't it, the amateur race. And he's also entered in at Haydock in a couple of weeks' time in the Grand National trial, which will probably be his type of race again.
Hobson is on track for his best ever season numerically, as is Dorset trainer Antony Honeyball. His best horses are right back to form, none more so than Sam Brown, who recorded a double in less than a fortnight after a gigantic 750 days on the sidelines.
It was a very quiet season last season. We had 14 winners in the end, but it was yeah, we were just, this time last year, we were just trying to get going again, and after giving them a long break with a virus, or sort of 6 weeks around the roads. So it's it's really good to get back on track. And I'd say 2 seasons ago we had a really, it was our best season to date, really cracking season, and so it has that feel to it this season. We really feel that we've got some nice horses and they're running well and running their races.
What do you put the recent success down to and the good run of form?
I suppose we've got a lot of horses that probably cope with soft, heavy ground.
Yeah.
So we haven't had to be on the back foot too much because of that. We've been able to get on and run them, and we just found the right races for them. And they say a few of them do look decent prospects. A lot of the bump horses, even early on in the season, they've just all kept winning, and they've been very pleasing.
2020 has started well because it's been the return of a horse who had huge promise early in his career, that being Sam Brown, who has obviously missed quite a chunk of time. But to bring him back and to win 2 chases within, a week and a half, 2 weeks, that must have given you a huge amount of satisfaction given how long that he had to miss.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a 5 to follow in the yard, and the owners will do it. And one of them was, we've got a transfer window, and he said, I'm thinking Sam Brown, is he going to make it? Isn't he? This is 3 weeks before he ran. And I thought, oh no, we're going to be struggling. It wasn't till the 2 weeks. I mean, he obviously was doing his work, but I was just a bit not too sure. And then the last 2 weeks, he really bloomed. And I basically said to him, I'll take him off your list, and of course then sort of the last 2 weeks leading into Lingfield, we felt, he's looking really good, really bright in his eye, and really his condition was holding nicely. And so he proved me wrong there. And we've always known he's a good horse. It probably is a little bit ground dependent, but certainly is a very good horse on soft, heavy ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, to win that like he did, it was just, yeah, it was really pleasing, and say we just felt that we'd see how the next 10 to 11 days go. We were obviously from Lingfield, we were always looking to run him in a decent race next time out, and Haydock fitted in lovely.
Was it just a series of niggling issues that kept him off?
Yeah, he had an accident at home just before, literally a few days before he's due to come back to us one summer. So that was, and we did manage to run him that season, but only the twice.
Yeah.
And then in preparation for the following season, he was probably. That's why probably the bounce factor didn't necessarily come into my mind too much, because he was actually pretty much ready to run last season, and then a stress fracture came in.
Yeah.
So that knocked us out again, just at the wrong time. We couldn't really get him back from that. So we've the owners have been very patient, and we've all been very patient. We had a lot of faith from the owners. I was sort of thinking, I'm not sure whether we have got him back or not, but it was great to see anyway.
Was it personally a brave decision to run him? I know you said about the bounce factor, but to go quite quickly into Haydock from Lingfield?
As soon as we felt he was okay the next day, I was very much looking at where do we go, how do we, what we're going to do, and I was looking at all the decent graded events. So I thought we've got to make the most of him if he's back in, back sound. Yeah, I suppose it was, but I mean, it never really. We only went there because we felt he ticked every box he could at home. The only thing is, you never really know. Until you run them, but he did everything right at home. If he'd missed a beat at all at home, we'd have waited, and given him another couple of weeks. But we felt he was ready for it.
What did you learn about him at Haydock?
The only time I did doubt my decision was at the end of the back, where I felt he'd made a few mistakes, and it was just looking like it was getting tough for him. And I thought, well, this is going to be too bad to be true, so we'll have to put a line through today. And he turned in, and Aidan said from there, he never felt like he'd get beat turning in. But it was just good to see him win a race of that quality over 2.5, making a few mistakes. So just confirmed, I suppose, what we knew. He was a good horse.
Is this horse a horse for Cheltenham this year?
Oh yeah, I mean, he definitely. It would only be really ground would be the issue. It's whether I can sit on my hands long enough, whether I can actually not end up going to the Reynoldsdown at Ascot. Mm-hmm. If all the boxes were ticked and the ground was right there, we might go there. But he definitely would. Yeah, I mean, he definitely would be. If you said now it'll be soft, heavy ground at Cheltenham, then there's only one place, we'd be training him for that specific target for sure, and be more than happy to go there. Yeah, he's ready for it. I mean, I suppose in an ideal world you'd have, 2 more months and you'd have another run in a novice chase, just to get even more experience. But I think he's a good jumper. He got a few wrong the other day, but in between that he was very accurate and he's got a good technique.
Take me back to the first Saturday of the year at Sandown. Did you see the day with Joe Peck on that occasion winning the veterans race, that hugely valuable race? Was it personally a plan well executed? Did it feel that way?
Once we saw the way the veterans qualifier worked out, and the horse that he finished second to won the Scottish National, we sort of always felt we'd have to work that and how are we going to get ourselves to Sandown in January, possibly off the same mark we're on now if we possibly can. So we chose the route of going novice hurdling and didn't know what we'd get from that. But when we saw heavy ground 3 miles, and we have the option of going left-handed over hurdles, whereas we don't have that going over fences really. Right. It's just too much of a habit of going right. He's very much better going right-handed. So we were able to open up a few more avenues over hurdles, and it was just, he's done well as a hurdler this season for an old horse. Yeah. We did actually get a few more pounds on our back for doing what we did over hurdles, I presume, or whether they went back to the Carlisle form to give us a few more pounds, but either way, we were a little bit higher, but it wasn't bad for 2 wins, and we were only a few pound higher than we'd started the season. So we went there and felt win, lose or draw, we've done all we can and everyone's happy, so we're very happy in the end.
But for you, watching the closing stages when the loose Horatio Hornblower started to play a little bit of a part, what was the heart rate monitor like?
Well, I did think for a minute, I can't believe we're going to actually get taken out now, because I couldn't actually see where the wings of the last were, so I wasn't quite sure if we were getting back in. But it was a dodgy moment, but it was good it didn't cost him really in the end. It was a real relief that we managed to get the win.
Where do you go from him, well, for him now? Where does he line up next?
He goes for the veterans, the first, I think it is the first leg, the first qualifier there is available, which is at Exeter, which is up the road for us. Mm-hmm. He'll go there, that'll be February the 9th. He goes there off 139. It's a £30,000 race in itself, so it's another So it's an exciting race to run him in, really. But I suppose we just felt that we wanted to get the qualification done as early as possible, and then we can do whatever we want with him in the meantime. I mean, he has got we have actually put him, he's 139 rated hurdler. I mean, we put him in the Albert Bartlett just as a bit of a look-see, really. But I mean, I don't know, it's quite tough for the younger horses, that 3 mile novice, and we felt that, he can have an entry anyway, so he's in there.
How's Regal Encore? Because I suppose this place just wouldn't look the same without him, would it?
I mean, his track record, he's got a great CV, really, in all the big handicaps. And he's never quite, taken that step into your top Gold Cup class horses, but hell of a good backup when you're winning. When you're winning, £100,000 handicaps, which he's done twice, and £75,000 handicap, and they say he's due to run in a race he's won before at Ascot on the 15th of February. We're looking to hold his mark on 146 where it is now. That is when the weights have already come out for the national, which he was entered for yesterday. So we can have a real good, have a good go there and see how he shapes. You'd hope he'd be in the shake-up in that race again, and then go straight from there to the national. The form he's in this season, and thinking how he ran it last season, I mean, he was right up behind Tiger Roll. I think jumped between 3 out and 2 out. Yeah. And it's a long, that's the thing, it is a long old way home from there, so it's a way of saying that. We're still we're a fair way off. We actually did wilt away, certainly going to the last, but actually halfway up the run-in, we actually went back past horses. So it's just that flat spot, just where you don't need it, or just where they keep quickening, because they do still gather and still seem the front group do really quicken again. So if we can just get through that phase, we're getting nearer. We're getting nearer, and we just feel the £6 and the better form he's in this season. I do think he has a decent chance of being right there.
Anthony has proved himself at nurturing young talent, and that's not just of the equine variety. Rex Dingell is going from strength to strength and is making up for lost time following a nasty injury last summer.
It probably happened at the right time if I was ever going to get injured. And I was lucky that my recovery went pretty straightforward. And again, like, all you want to happen is when you come back to slot back in and pick some rides up and get back into the swing of things. And
were you worried about that at the time?
Not really. I was never. I was worried that I might be a bit rusty, and not as in. I just didn't want to be behind the other conditionals. You want to bounce back straight in and get winners on the board and not spend too much time trying to ride like you were before you build up so much confidence when you're riding winners, which I was before I got injured. So I didn't want to be too far behind.
And remind us of the injury.
I fractured C7 at the bottom of my neck.
But obviously the rehabilitation was smooth enough for all that it was a number of months.
Yeah, it was 4 months. The bone healed fairly straightforward, just time and rebuild the muscles and wait for the nerve damage to sort itself out. So.
To anyone who wouldn't know, where did the journey to being a jockey begin?
I kind of always rode in Pony Club and went hunting, and I got into pony racing and point-to-pointing. I started working for a man called David Phelan, who does breakers and has some pointers, and I went from there and dotted myself around a bit, and I've ended up at Antony Honeyballs, which is obviously working well. So point-to-pointing was probably the biggest step. Yeah. And I think it's one of the most important things probably for a young jockey who wants to turn conditional to do.
First day he schooled a horse here, we thought, oh, that'll do. It's sort of an interview kind of day. He just came to have a look, or he's interviewing us as much as we were him, I think. But just seeing him at an obstacle, we thought, oh, we can work with him. And he's I think just attitude. I think you've got to want to work hard, and he's just got he's good at, as I say, he's good at his obstacles, good attitude. He's obviously his weights, he's got a good weight, so he can easily do 10 stone or less. So since he's got down to 3, and I've sort of jokingly said, oh, your career over now, Rex, it's going to be very tough now. But he actually has, he's kept those contacts, and we've been very pleased to use him. We've been very, obviously when he had the 7 and the £5, it was a no-brainer. But then you do have to start asking yourself questions then when you get down to 3. And Rex was feeling the same way. He's like, I just say, you've got to keep upping your game. And he has.
And while Defi de Soy has been grabbing the headlines this season, Philip Hobbs won't just have one big chance at the Cheltenham Festival. Thyme Hill has proven himself to be a Grade 1 performer already, while Sporting John remains in the could-be-anything bracket after just 2 starts in novice hurdles.
My thought watching the race was that he wasn't travelling as well as I thought he should be, and I thought some of his jumping wasn't as slick as it had been before, because actually his jumping before, both in the Persian War at Cheltenham, was really good. But Richard thought that actually the main problem was they went so quick that that's why he didn't travel so well.
Yeah.
And actually his jumping wasn't quite as slick because of that as well. When he made the mistake at the last hurdle, in the shallow hurdle, I think that was only because he was in front and still a bit green. But he just wasn't as slick at most of them. So actually he wasn't at all concerned about it. And he does stay extremely well. So he's in the Ballymore and the Albert Bartlett. So we'll worry about where he goes nearer the time. I don't think though that he's a complete out and out slogger. So if the Cheltenham ended up very soft, I don't think the Albert Bartlett then would be the right race.
He's a leading British candidate. As regards between now and Cheltenham, there won't be another run.
No. He's not ever been the most robust horse in that he doesn't hold condition fantastically well. Actually, he looks really good at the moment, so we're really happy with where we are. But he's the opposite from Defi de Soy in that he would not want so much work at home. He wouldn't want racing so much. If we're going to get him to Cheltenham in peak condition, he didn't want another run beforehand. I suppose in a way, I wouldn't have minded another run just for experience.
I just want to talk about a horse that we've seen twice for you, both at Exeter, that being Sporting John, who, I mean, the form of that first race, the second, third, fourth, fifth, all winning. Has it all been about getting him vital experience at this stage?
You know, when he won the first time, he's quite a gross horse,
right,
and he definitely would have needed it. So there would be improvement fitness-wise and maybe experience-wise. And then when he won the second time, realistically, he didn't have a lot to beat, but he won very easy. He's obviously been training in a different place before he came here, so that's a help. The experience he'd had and the experience of point to point. He'd always looked a nice horse from the start, but yeah, he possibly needs a bit more experience, but that wouldn't be the main thing.
Do you have Cheltenham in mind for him? He's got 2 entries, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, so he's entered in the Supreme Novice Hurdle and the Ballymore as well. Look, the entries go so early that we have to make entries, don't we?
Yeah.
We have to try and anticipate what might happen before Cheltenham. He'll have a run before anyway, which is likely to be at Exeter on the 9th of February, which is a listed hurdle race there, 2 mile 1.
It's a very exciting clutch of horses, isn't it? Not just for the stars of the present, the Defi de Soys, but for some of the younger horses coming through. You've got some really nice ones this year.
We've got plenty of nice young horses that have been running well in novice hurdles and should go on to better things. So I think they're the nicest lot we've had for some time, but when you start saying that sort of thing, that's when things go wrong.
And that's it for this edition of This Racing Live. We'd like to thank everybody who made this week's show possible, and indeed thanks to you at home for watching. We'll see you again this time next week.